Welcome back to the 2 Months Podcast, presented by Sheena Boychuk Real Estate. I'm your host, Joshua Marshall. I'm riding solo today. I don't have a co-host, so we are recording here early Wednesday morning, and our guest this morning will be TSN hockey insider Darren Dreger. So we'll get to that interview very, very shortly. Just wanted to address a few cool things and make a nice cool announcement for some more tickets and some more giveaways. With the celebration of our YouTube channel hitting over the 1,000 subscribers, dating back to our last episode with Bob Stauffer, including this episode today with Darren Dreger, and any episodes in the future. If you guys want to win some tickets, some free tickets to any NHL game. So if you're in Edmonton, you're in Seattle, wherever you are, go in the comment section of those episodes and type in the city that you live in, and just like the video, the YouTube video that we have posted. So just hit like, hit the thumbs up button, and then type in the city that you play in, and we'll do a draw at the end of this month, at the end of November. We'll pick a winner. So as many times as you want, you could, so you get one entry per video. So obviously Bob Stauffer was the other day on Monday, Darren Dreger today, Mike Fuda Thursday, and Brent Sutter will be Friday. And then any other episodes in the future, put in your the city that you play or that you live in, and we'll draw a name. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped for jumping in on this initiative. So pretty cool situation going on here. So we're very thankful, very grateful. And also you'll have to subscribe too. So hopefully most of you guys are subscribing, and if you aren't, then just click that subscribe button. And we'll draw some tickets, give away some nice set of tickets, lower bowl, any city that you play in. So looking forward to that. Without further ado, you guys aren't really here to listen to me talk. You guys are here to listen to Darren Dreger, some trade talk, some NHL recap with Darren Dreger. So let's get to our interview right now with Dregs. Mutts fans, our next guest is back with us for his 8th visit. He is a co-host with Ray Ferraro on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. He is also the TSN Hockey Insider on TSN Hockey. We'd like to welcome back to the 2 Months Podcast, Darren Dreger. Dregs, how's it going?
Yeah, Josh, it's going well. Thanks. As you're doing the introduction there, I'm thinking back to when the last time we connected here on the 2 Months. Did we do something after the trade deadline, like going into free agency last summer? I think we did.
Yeah. So that was the last time we had you on. And obviously, we started this journey about 5 years ago. Didn't know what I was doing. But then I think you and I did a few podcasts in a row. We did like 3 in a row, Dregs, and it was pretty good. So we found an appetite with podcasts. Obviously, the Ray and Dregs podcast is very successful, and we're doing our little part here as we can. But it's a lot of fun, as you know, right? So this is pretty cool to do. And you had Jeff O'Neill help you out the other day, last week. So another good guy that's been on our pod as well. So all great people at TSN. But obviously some big news. We'll get into some NHL recap first before we get into some trade talk, Dregs. But the Oilers streak ends at 16 last night. A really great game in the NHL with Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers. But Adin Hill stood tall. The Oilers pushed. But thoughts on the game and what you saw and this streak that the Oilers were on here?
Yeah, it just seems vintage Vegas Golden Knights, if it's even appropriate to apply vintage beside the Vegas Golden Knights, because they haven't been around, for a long, long time, but they are the defending Stanley Cup champions. And it just feels like they do things in Vegas with extraordinary patience. They've gone through an unbelievable string of injuries, and they still have a good number of players out. And the carousel of goaltenders has one more time been there in Vegas. And Adin Hill comes back ready, healthy, and puts on a show like he did against McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers last night with 30 saves. And, Edmonton started that game strong, right? McDavid scores the shorty, and you're like, oh, here they go. They're about to tie the record established by the Pittsburgh Penguins in 92-93. And then Adin Hill said, now that's enough of you guys. And he kind of locked the door. And the experience of the Vegas Golden Knights took over after that. So, look, I mean, Edmonton has been such a great story, mostly, obviously in the last 16 games, but even before that, through trying times early in the year. But I'm going to revisit Vegas here for a moment, because until they have been pushed aside, you cannot strip away the label of defending Stanley Cup champion. And I'm a big believer in how Kelly McCrimmon does his business as general manager. Bruce Cassidy is a decorated head coach. They've got all of the pieces there still. And as the March 8th trade deadline, Josh, looms, I'm still wondering if they're going to be able to do something else. And what is that something else? If they've got a player who isn't going to be available because of long-term injury until the start of the playoffs, you can bet your dollar that McCrimmon and George McPhee are going to find a way to make an improvement to that roster. So both the Vegas Golden Knights and the future of the Edmonton Oilers, in terms of how they bounce back, which they will, both intriguing storylines coming out of last night's game.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely fun to watch. Definitely good for obviously the Canadian content with the Oilers, the Flames, the Canucks. Obviously the Flames a big win last night, but you're right. It's hard to count the Vegas Golden Knights out. They, they could easily find something in that system to, if they can get some cap relief, they're going to find something along the way here to maybe add something big or add something small that is still a huge asset for them. But Kuzmenko gets into the lineup last night. Braden Pahal gets in the lineup too. He stood tall in the back end, a nice right shot defenseman for the Calgary Flames. And Kuzmenko, your early first game, but chemistry with Huberdeau looked good. Dregs, a big win over the Boston Bruins last night. Thoughts on that game and the trade that was for both teams, for the Canucks and the Flames.
Well, you know what the proof was in that Flames win over Boston is that even though you make big deals and moving out arguably their best player in Elias Lindholm to the Vancouver Canucks was a significant move and a pretty clear indication that Craig Conroy and the Calgary Flames have flipped the switch here. They know they've got to do something to renovate, right? But that doesn't mean that the rest of the room, the rest of the team is just simply going to roll over and say, okay, well, let us know when the trade deadline passes. Let's get to the end of the regular season, and then we'll look forward to what other changes are. No, I mean, you're talking about paid professionals here who have a wealth of pride inside that room. And whether it's somebody like Kuzmenko, new injection into the lineup, who wants to prove that Vancouver made a mistake by including him as part of this deal, or Pahal, who comes in and clearly has something to prove. These are all men who want to show that they are legitimate NHL difference makers. So that's why I've never been a believer in tanking. And I'm not applying that in any way, shape, or form to what the direction is here of the Calgary Flames. It just historically, we'll look at teams and we'll say, all right, well, they're just mailing it in. They've lost 10 in a row. They're looking for that first overall draft pick. Well, that comes more in the form of management, right? When you're stripping things down to the wood, you're not giving your team a chance to win. And sometimes that's by design, but you're never going to convince me that the players in that room, no matter what their makeup is, whether they're elite level or they're entry level, they all play with pride and they want to do whatever they can individually to win. So I think we're going to see some good hockey from the Calgary Flames moving forward. And obviously, Josh, we know that there are pieces that aren't going to be there in Calgary on March 9th. There are new faces coming into this organization, but it's all with the design and making the foundation of this club and the direction of this club better moving forward.
Yeah, and I was telling a friend of mine the other day, Phil. He's a big Flames fan, and I was just saying to him, like, it's interesting because we've seen a lot lately in this NHL with the Rangers years ago with the letter of rebuild, and then they came back and it was pretty quick. We're seeing what the Flyers have done and what Tortorella has been able to do and Danny Briere has been able to do with that organization, and they're still in a fight to make the playoffs. And there's a team maybe that we all thought that weren't going to be there, but they are. And the Flames might not make the playoffs, but you're right. We'll see what happens with Tanev. We'll see what happens with Hanifin. Do you see anything happening this week, obviously, with those two players, or is it probably going to be more closer to the March 8th deadline?
Yeah, look, I'm going to be careful because
you don't want to get podcast or radio.
Well, look, we deal with things on an immediate basis here, right? And I recognize, especially in our podcast world, things take time to post and all of that. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be cautious in saying that. No, I think it's going to be closer to the deadline. I would say this: if the Toronto Maple Leafs, as an example, Josh, were going to step up and offer Craig Conroy a first-round draft pick for Chris Tanev, that deal would get done in minutes. That's Toronto doesn't have a second round pick. It seems somewhat obvious that either Conroy doesn't have the second round pick that he's looking for, or legitimately he thinks that somebody is going to step up with the first. Either scenario, if the fit was right, the deal would be made. And then you've got Tanev that has to be included, in the decision making here. He's a good dude, high character individual. Conroy wants to do right by Chris Tanev. And so, let's revisit, was it a week or so ago when all of the noise around the Ottawa Senators and Chris Tanev was kind of amplified? And the first thing I thought of when the speculation broke was that, okay, well, I can understand why Chris Tanev would have interest in the future of the Ottawa Senators. What I don't know is why Chris Tanev would want to throw away the rest of this season. He's a guy that's in the later stages of his career, obviously. He wants to win a Stanley Cup. He's as hungry as anybody in the National Hockey League. So why would you blow away an opportunity for the rest of this season? Why not wait until you get closer to the trade deadline to see where's the best fit? Maybe the best term and the best money for Chris Tanev is in the nation's capital of Ottawa. And maybe at that point he goes, okay, well, if I don't have to uproot my family twice, I moved to Ottawa. I've got long-term security here. My family's set up. We're all good. That'll be end of career stuff. Okay, I can appreciate that. So I think that there's a number of ways that you can attack this story. And I know I'm being long-winded in explaining this, but in saying all that, Toronto Maple Leafs are a contending team. Mm-hmm. Chris Tanev makes the Toronto Maple Leafs a better team defensively, and they need help defensively across the board. But it's going to cost a first-round pick. Toronto doesn't want to have to give up that first-round pick. So could it happen in the very near future? 100%. Could it go down to the deadline? Yeah, it can meet the deadline as well. That's where we're at.
Yeah. Obviously a big game tonight for the Leafs against the Dallas Stars. Dallas just won last night in Buffalo, so they're catching them on the back-to-back. But the Dallas Stars have the third best road record in the West here coming into Toronto. Sheldon Keefe's comments, Pee Wee hockey comment about Kyle McLean getting on a breakaway to score a goal. He's done a few of these kind of comments throughout the year. I was listening to Brian Boyle on Overdrive yesterday, and he kind of said maybe those comments are kind of wearing thin, and you probably can't use them anymore the rest of the year because you've used a lot of them. Where are you at with that in terms of what Sheldon Keefe has done to call the players out to kind of get their attention?
Well, hey, look, I understand it's heat of the moment, and I applaud the honesty. And I think that this is maybe a sign that Sheldon Keefe is comfortable in his own skin and where he's at as an NHL head coach. And he's calling it like he sees it. So I don't think that these comments are going to, disappear, but they're going to have to be warranted. He's not cherry picking. He's not looking at calling guys out for the sake of calling them out. He has way too much respect for everyone who wears the Maple Leafs sweater. But so let's just analyze a little bit here. A couple of comments that he made. So you start with a McLean goal, his first NHL goal, which was kind of nice. And man, did he tuck that thing away on the back end in fancy fashion.
Father on the bench too, I think. Right?
Yeah. And so you've got Keefe who's commenting, making, that's a Pee-wee mistake. Okay, he's talking about Timothy Liljegren, who wasn't paying attention to the clock and the time running out on the penalty. So yes, of course, that's a mistake. But as Kyle or Sheldon noted yesterday, and pushed by the media, he also made a mistake as the head coach because there was an opportunity to make a line change about 55 seconds in or so, right? Throw the second unit out there if you don't like how things are going. And he opted not to do that. And he took ownership of that and said, hey, there were a number of mistakes made on that play, and I'm included in that as well. So, you know what I think it is? And there was another comment that he made when asked about, the percentage of games that the Toronto Maple Leafs have played really well, in his opinion. And I think he said, 50%?
Yeah.
He felt like they 50% of the games to this point of the season, they played really well. Okay. All right. So he's talking about the inconsistency in the overall game of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Well, I'm not being critical, and nor am I being a smart aleck or being Captain Obvious. Guess what one of the main characteristics of a good head coach in the National Hockey League is? Being able to draw the consistency out of your team. No matter what you do. I look at Jim Montgomery and the Boston Bruins. Monty's a heck of a coach. He is. And, people want to make, issue of the number of changes that Sheldon Keefe will make in game. Watch a Bruins game. He's got wingers playing center, centers playing the wing. And I mean, he'll make adjustments every couple of minutes. But you know what the difference is? He's got complete buy-in from that whole group in Boston. Complete buy-in. They didn't play their best, obviously, against Calgary last night, but he's got commitment. And that's what Sheldon Keefe wants more than anything in the world, is a full commitment from everybody. Not just his bottom six or his depth guys who are scraping and clawing and just trying to solidify their position in the National Hockey League. He needs buy-in from his top players and from his 8, 9, 10 defensemen, and from guys who are in or out of the lineup. You have to play a certain way, and that's what Keefe is begging for when he talks about consistency.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting situation to watch. As I am a Leaf fan, so it's so the wins wear thin, or the losses wear thin, but we'll see what happens. And as me doing this podcast more, I'm trying to just be more of a fan of the game, as in a way, and cheer for the successful stories along the way. But another
nothing wrong with that.
Nope, nothing wrong with that at all. But a pretty good successful story kind of in New York there. Jonathan Quick, just seeing it now, he's going to start for his third consecutive game. A pretty good signing there with Chris Drury that's done a good job. But Shesterkin's just going to kind of take a little bit of a reset, do some video from what the tweet said, and work with the staff. Obviously, he is their guy, but how valuable has that signing been for the New York Rangers, Dregs?
Oh, man, you can't put a price on the quality of bringing in an experienced goaltender like that, who I think most in the hockey world would have said it's over, right? Like, I mean, more or less, he's done. Jonathan Quick felt differently and wanted an opportunity, has been given an opportunity in New York. But still, I mean, this is storybook stuff, what he's been able to do when given that chance to hold down the crease for the New York Rangers. So still has plenty of game left. But even the hardened experts, former NHL goaltenders who were critical of, Jonathan Quick joining the Rangers initially, are like, wow, what a story. And now you hear them screaming the accolades of this former Conn Smythe winner. I mean, he just epitomizes what it takes to face adversity, get over it, and prove that you still have fire burning and you have game left. And it's been a godsend, quite frankly, to the New York Rangers because of what they're dealing with Shesterkin. Now, I think we all can understand that Shesterkin is still an elite level goaltender, and he's going through a tough patch, but that's why you need a good tandem. And, and also a reminder that even though Shesterkin, like I said, is an elite level goaltender, you have to invest wisely in that goaltending tandem. You can't throw a boatload of money at one guy and then invest in a quality backup. You've got to pay the money to the elite and then hope something like Jonathan Quick happens where, he finds his game and proves to all the naysayers that he still has plenty left in the tank. So, the goaltending in New York is something that we're watching closely from a bigger story, but no different than some of the goaltending around the National Hockey League. But Josh, this may surprise you. When you look at the goalie market, it's not nearly as hot as I think most of us expected it would be at this point. I think many of us predicted that the trade wheel would get turning with a goaltender being in play or getting moved.
Yeah, it's and even his former team in the LA Kings, I wonder how much they wish they maybe still had him right now.
Yeah.
Jim Hiller's going to take over. DJ Smith coming out of the situation he was in Ottawa, and pretty cool. I think that's a cool story. You don't see too many head coaches that get relieved, get right back into it on the assistant coach side. But DJ going to LA, Jim Hiller taking over. How do you view that situation? Obviously, Todd McClellan, we all know he's a great coach. He's a great guy, great person. Rod Blake was dealt a tough hand in that situation there, but he's going to be the coach for the rest of
Yeah.
the year. Do you see the Kings turning it around here? I know they need Pierre-Luc Dubois to get going too, and a few others, but where are you at with the LA Kings, Greg?
Yeah, I hope so, because they were such a good story in the first chunk of the season, right? And this is not through a lack of trying by management and the coaching. I say coaching, and Todd McClellan is now out of job. So he ultimately paid the price. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there are some players there that have to take a long look in the mirror and realize that it doesn't matter who the coach is. If they don't get going, the Los Angeles Kings can't be as good as they looked like they were going to be early in the year. And as you touched on, that includes goaltending. Cam Talbot looked like a rock star for the first 20 games or so of the regular season, maybe even a bit more than that. And in the last 5-6 weeks, he's looked like a shell of the goaltender that he was. So they need everybody to pull up their socks. When I saw Rob Blake deliver the news the other day that they had made the coaching change, you could see the pain and suffering, couldn't you, Josh?
Yeah.
Like, here's a general manager who I want to say is in the second year of a 3-year extension. So he's got this year plus one more, I believe, that is taking full responsibility for how things have unraveled here. Tough decisions. Every GM who has to fire a coach in season wears it, and it takes a piece of his soul, because that it's not, in most cases, it's not a coaching problem. But you also can't, allow the team to completely go up in smoke. There's still plenty of hockey left. Lots of opportunity for the LA Kings to lock down a playoff spot and maybe find the magic that the St. Louis Blues found a number of years back and run the table in the second half here and then march all the way to the Stanley Cup. How do we know that that's impossible? We don't know that. And that's what Rob Blake is counting on. If it doesn't go that way, Josh, and I'm not saying that it's cup or bust for the LA Kings. I think that's being ridiculous. But if they don't find a way to lock down a playoff spot, could we see full-scale change? Yes. Yeah. And Rob Blake is not a quitter. He doesn't give up on anything. But when I looked at Rob Blake, it almost read to me like there could be relief at the end of the year. Just a man who's given everything to this organization. Sometimes change is good. Change for the sake of change isn't good, but change can be good.
Yeah.
And maybe he feels or will feel, I'm not putting words or thoughts in his mind here, maybe at the end of the year, if things don't go the way that he expects and is counting on, he goes, all right, I can't do more. Our management group can't do more. It's time for a different voice. That's something that we're wondering about as media, but there's a lot of hockey left ahead before that comes to fruition.
Yeah, they're everything you hear is he's a great guy, great person. Obviously played the game very hard at a great level for a very long time, and we all know that relationship between him and Todd goes deep, not just the hockey, but the friendship and the respect they have for each other. So definitely a hard one to do. We'll finish off here with the Winnipeg the Winnipeg Jets. Losers of 4 straight here, but a tough loss last night to the Penguins, but a really good ad, and I think Sean Monahan, and I think they'll be okay. I'm pretty sure they'll be okay. Any adversity is good adversity throughout the year. It makes you stronger when the playoffs come around. But this is a team very well too, Dregs, and a team that I think a lot of teams should be afraid of when they play them in the playoffs here. And where are you at with the Jets, and then maybe more ads that they could bring into the fold here?
Well, any playoff worthy team, and in this case a contending team, looks at bolstering their blue line, and you always look at the best available. But I'm sure Winnipeg will look and see if best available isn't affordable, then they just look at adding some depth on defense. That would make a lot of sense. I think Kevin Cheveldayoff hit it out of the park in acquiring Sean Monahan, and obviously we just talked about the LA Kings. The trade that he made in acquiring the 3 pieces from the LA Kings are a big part of why the Winnipeg Jets are a top contending team. Those guys are 3 perfect fits. All 3 of those players want to be with the Winnipeg Jets long term, which matters in a small market like that. when you get buy-in from your players to that degree, which now includes Scheifele and Hellebuck signing their contract extensions, that just shows everybody else that the group is in it to win it. And so that gave ownership, most importantly, the confidence to go all in. And now that's what management is doing. Kevin Cheveldayoff did not want to lob another first round draft pick out there, right? But he knew that that was a price that he had to pay to acquire Sean Monahan, who I think is perfectly suited to be the number 2 center for the Winnipeg Jets. Scheifele's coming off injury, played last night. If there's time needed where he needs to get healthier, if something's nagging, not saying it is, just what if? Well, Monahan can play, he can play top line minutes if he needs to. If you're deep enough, you want to try something else, he can slip down to the third line. He can play the wing, he can play power play, he can play penalty kill. So that's a real big add by the Winnipeg Jets. And what's most impressed me about Winnipeg, Josh, aside from the obvious, I mean, you start in the crease with Hellebuck, is how they can play any game you want to play. You want to play that low scoring, kind of defensive game of chess. Yeah, Winnipeg can play that way. They didn't play great last night. I mean, coming out of the All-Star break, fine. They've got some concerns now with Brendan Dillon likely going to be suspended for the hit on Achare. So they're going to face some adversity here, but they are so well equipped to play just about any game. And when teams are positioned that way going into the playoffs, that's a real healthy place to be in, because you're not worried about who you're matching up with in any round. You're just, let's play the game we have to play to win the series.
Yeah. We'll just get one more in. The Canucks. Yeah. Do you think they'll add more here? Obviously, 6 trades throughout the year. Dregs, do you think there's one more trade in the chamber there for Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford to do here?
Well, it feels like they may have something else. I'm not saying something else in the hopper, but I stopped questioning Jimmy Rutherford and what he may or may not do a long, long time ago. This guy's been around forever, and he and Patrick Allvin work lockstep with each other. And I mean, it's kind of, as an aside, Josh, it's the way of the league right now. It really is. It maybe started with Jeff Gorton and Ken Hughes in Montreal. Now, of course, you have Jimmy Rutherford and Patrick Allvin. You look at Ottawa, and you've got Steve Stales, the general manager, Dave Poulin, who's come in as boss of hockey operations. You need the two-headed monster in many aspects, because, 2 guys working the phones, differing opinions, differing layers of experience, and all of that. I mean, that was a big ad, 2 big ads in Zadorov and Lindholm from the Calgary Flames. But would I be surprised? At one point, they were talking about including Chris Tanev in a bigger deal, which would have sent Lindholm and Tanev to the Vancouver Canucks. And I think Calgary decided, no, you know what? Let's just sit tight on Tanev and, play it out till the end of the trade deadline here and see what happens and see who steps up. So that's why I'm hesitant to say I think Vancouver is done. They're not done until the bell sounds on March 8th and trade deadline is over and away they go. If there's a way that they think they can improve their team, they're going to do that.
Yeah, they're a good team, and depth has been key there. And player I keep an eye on is maybe, I wonder where Tyler Toffoli might end up. In a lot of this here too. I know he had some success in Vancouver before, but we'll see if the Devils can get back into the race. But it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. It'll be busy for you, Dregs. Again, thanks for joining us here on the 2 Months podcast, and all the best to you and your family here. And looking forward to the great tweets and the more great episodes you and Ray have here coming forward. So thank you.
Well, I always appreciate you having me, Josh. And I look forward to our next one. It'll probably be around the end of June, maybe before the draft, certainly before July 1st and free agency.
Yes, we'll do that for sure. All right. Thanks, Dregs. Have a great one.
Take care.